Isn't this just a deeply cynical manoeuvre from a failing and utterly reckless Prime Minister?
I have to say to the right honourable gentleman, it's a bit rich him standing here and talking about dithering. Let's see what the Labour Party did this week. They said they would call a vote of no confidence. Then they said they wouldn't. Then he said he would. Then it wasn't effective. I know it's Christmas. I know it's Christmas. I know it's Christmas.
Order! Members must not shout at the Prime Minister. Order! Order! Calm yourselves. Try to get into the Christmas spirit. Or if you can't do that, at least listen to the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. They said they'd put down a vote of no confidence. Then they said they wouldn't. Then they said they would. Then they did it, but it wasn't effective. I know it's the Christmas season and the pantomime season, but what do we see from the Labour front bench and the right honourable gentleman? He's going to put a confidence vote. Oh, yes, he is. Oh, no, he isn't. I've got some news for him. I've got some advice for the right honourable gentleman. Look behind you. They're not impressed, and neither is the country.
Leader of the Opposition, Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for your invitation to come to make a short point to the House, which I'm very happy to do and have come immediately to do that. During Prime Minister's question time today, I referred to those who I believe were seeking to turn a debate about the national crisis facing our country into a pantomime as stupid people. Mr. Speaker, I did not use the words stupid woman about the Prime Minister or anyone else, and am completely opposed to the use of sexist or misogynist language in absolutely any form at all. And I'm happy to place that on the record at your request this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Calm down. I don't need any advice from the Order. I understand that the point of order flows from the exchanges. In those circumstances, as I've done on previous occasions, I will take the point of order from the Order. No. I'm taking the point of order from the right honourable gentleman. I will be the judge of these matters. Point of order, Sir Patrick McLaughlin.
Mr. Speaker, you may not have seen during the exchanges in Prime Minister's questions that when the Leader of the Opposition sat down, he muttered words which were quite clearly visible, accusing the Prime Minister of being a stupid woman. Bearing in mind, Mr. Speaker, the booklet that you issued this week, the words that the Leader of the Opposition said last September, would it not be appropriate for him to come back in the chamber and apologise?
I'm pleased to respond to the right honourable gentleman's point of order. As he rightly surmised at the start of it, I saw no such thing. I am not making an allegation, and I am not denying or seeking to refute that of the right honourable gentleman. I cannot be expected to pronounce upon that which I did not see, and which was not witnessed by my advisers, and which I did not hear, and which was not witnessed by my advisers. I don't need any advice in how to respond to a point of order from the right honourable gentleman, which is what I'm doing. What I say in response, with all courtesy to the right honourable gentleman, who's perfectly entitled to have raised that point of order, is that it is incumbent upon all members of this House to operate in accordance with its best conventions and to follow the conventions and courtesies. If a member has failed to do so, that member has a responsibility to apologise. He is quite right to say that. What he cannot, and I'm sure does not expect me to do, is to pronounce a verdict in a circumstance which I did not witness, either in terms of seeing anything or of hearing anything, and neither did my advisers. And I will leave it there. And it's perfectly... Order. It is perfectly proper that the right honourable gentleman raised the matter. I have responded to it, and there can be no further to that point of order, because I have order. There can be no further to that point of order on that matter, for the simple reason, as he acknowledges with his nod of assent, that he's raised it with me, and I have responded to it. Is it on an unrelated matter? No, I've already... All right, I'm not going to take lectures from members. I will take... It is normal convention in this place that when a matter has been addressed, again, part of the conventions and courtesies of this House, that people recognise that you don't have repeat points of order on exactly the... You don't have repeat points of order on exactly this order on exactly the same matter. Order. I am perfectly prepared to take a point of order on the matter from the leader of the House. We have order. We have heavy business today, some of which is government statements, and with which we will, in due course, preferably reasonably soon, need to proceed. But I will happily take the right honourable lady's point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to ask, after your finding there that individuals who are found to have made unwelcome remarks should apologise, why it is that when an opposition member found that you had called me a stupid woman, you did not apologise in this chamber?
No. I'll deal with the point. I dealt with that matter months ago in remarks that I made to the House of Commons, to which the Right Honourable Lady in our various meetings since has made no reference, and which requires from the Chair today no elaboration whatsoever. She's asked the question, I dealt with it months ago, I've reiterated the rationale for the way in which I responded, the matter has been treated of, and I am leaving it there. And if there are... A point of order, Anna Soubry.
Mr. Speaker, with great respect to the Chair, I have to say this. If it was one of my male colleagues on this side of the House who had used that expression against a woman on the front bench on the opposition, then you, sir, would take action immediately. Please, would you deal with it, as you often do, Mr. Speaker, in a fair way, but also from the point of view of women in this House who are fed up over decades of being abused by men?
I'm very happy to deal with it. The Right Honourable Lady is absolutely right to say that if I witnessed an instance of the kind that has just been alleged, I would deprecate it unreservedly. It's no good people shaking their heads. I received assent to the proposition, which I think would command widespread assent, simply and logically, that I cannot be expected to deprecate the behaviour of an individual which I did not witness. If the Right Honourable Lady is asking me whether I deprecate without reservation the use of such language, yes, obviously, absolutely I do, without any hesitation. But I cannot be expected to pronounce judgment in a particular case on a given individual when I wasn't privy to the circumstances. But if she's asking me, is that language unacceptable? It is. No, she's... Very well. When Anna Soubry.
If I and other colleagues who I can see the photos, clearly the evidence exists. If we bring it to you within the next, 2 minutes, would you then, Mr. Speaker, take action? Because again, I make a point. If it was a male on this side, I think you would against a woman on the other side.
The answer is that forgive me, but it is incumbent upon a member who has erred, who has used inappropriate language and behaved improperly, to come to the House. It is incumbent upon that person, to recognise the misconduct and to apologise for it. If members produce what they regard as evidence, of course it is order. If members produce what they regard as evidence, it is order. If members produce what they... I'm in the middle of... No, what I say to the Honourable Gentleman, the member for Braintree, is please have the courtesy to allow me to respond to the Right Honourable Lady's point of order. If evidence is produced, it will be considered, and I will take professional advice, as fair-minded people would expect me to do. Point of order, Vicky Ford.
Mr. Speaker, could you confirm that it is not acceptable parliamentary language to call a woman a stupid woman in this House? And as regards the point of order from the Leader of the House, may I add the words, me too?
The answer is, I've already made the response to that point perfectly clear. So, forgive me, I treat the Honourable Lady with courtesy and respect, and she's perfectly entitled to raise a point of order. But of that point, I have already treated. Point of order, James Cleverly.
In the link that you distributed, you make the point very rightly that we are all honourable members. Our word is therefore evidence. I saw it, sir. I saw him say it.
It's all I am not seeking to refute what the Honourable Gentleman is saying. I am simply saying I didn't witness it. The Clerk of the House and the other clerks at the table didn't witness it. And I cannot be expected immediately, no good to be waving something at me. I cannot be expected immediately to pronounce guilt or innocence. No, I can't be expected immediately to pronounce. I can't be expected. What I reiterate to the Honourable, I'll deal with it in a moment. What I reiterate to the Honourable Gentleman is that members are responsible for their own conduct and should apologise if they have committed a misdemeanour. It's no good a member standing by the chair and trying to show me something. What I say to the Honourable Gentleman is that the Leader of the Opposition will have heard of the allegations that have been made, he will have heard the allegations, and if the Right Honourable Gentleman, in the light of those, chose to come to the House and to respond, I'm sure that would be appreciated by the House. Point of order, Dame Margaret Beckett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I understand the observations made by the right honourable lady opposite, and I hope I doubt no one in my wish to see the courtesies of this House observed. But do you believe that it is in order for what appears to be becoming almost an orchestrated right to take place?
Order. No, I'm sorry. Honourable and right... Order. Honourable and right honourable members have raised points of order, and they have been heard, and they have been answered. The notion that the right honourable lady stands to raise a point of order and is then shouted down is order. Don't know to me. That is exactly what an attempt was being made to achieve, and it's not going to work. Point of order, Dame Margaret Beckett.
Certainly, Mr. Speaker, it does seem to me, and I've been in this House for so many years, that an attempt is presently being made to shout you down. There is much serious business before this House, and I would be astonished if a single one of our constituents does not view these scenes with utter contempt.
Well, I thank the right honourable lady for watching us. Yes, of course, I'll come to the other members. Point of order, Dr. Caroline Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's clear that this has raised some significant upset on certainly on our side, and I suspect, and some of the women. The issue of the leading the opposition being alleged to have called someone a stupid woman, our Prime Minister of our country, a stupid woman, has clearly caused high feeling. It's also clear that many honourable and right honourable members have evidence to show you, and I'm really grateful that you're willing to look at that and then to take the advice that you need before coming back to the House. Can I ask within what time frame you expect to be able to do so?
Yes, that's right. Order, that's a very reasonable point of order, and the answer is, I reiterate that I am happy to look at that evidence if that evidence exists. Order, I don't need the honourable gentleman to chance. I don't need the intervention of the honourable gentleman, which doesn't advance matters. What I say to the honourable lady with courtesy is that I've heard the point of order, I am willing to consider that evidence, and I would come back on the matter as advised by the clerk after the two statements to the House. That seems perfectly reasonable. We have two statements to follow. If the evidence exists, it can be looked at, and a response can be provided, and we can take the matter from there, but it can perfectly reasonably wait, and should sensibly do so, until the two statements have been delivered to the House, and questioning has taken place on them. Point of order, Sir Hill.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to you for looking at the evidence. I think they call it VAR in football. But when you come back, would it be possible for the House authorities to have contacted the office of the Leader of the Opposition to make sure that he's present to hear your ruling?
Let's wait to see. If I have a ruling, it would be a great courtesy if the Leader of the Opposition were here, and I very much hope that he will be. And I know what the right honourable gentleman has said. Point of order, sir. Point of order, Dr. Celebrity.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Calling anybody a stupid woman is not acceptable. Can I endorse the words of my honourable colleague opposite, that also what is important if we want to encourage a wide range of people to get involved in politics, that we have cool heads, accessible processes, and an honest way of proceeding, and that right now the most important thing for this House is to be able to go away, look at the evidence, and get on with doing our job. So, Mr. Speaker, please can you tell us how do we move on to the next bit of business?
Order, I don't need the honourable gentleman continually ranting. Order, don't argue the toss with me, Mr. Hall. I will call the points of order when I order. I'll call them when I'm ready. What I say to the honourable lady is that the best way in which to proceed is to move to the statements, and I will treat of further points of order in the circumstances. I was not aware of this alleged evidence, and it has been brought to light by points of order. But the sooner the points of order come to an end, the sooner we can proceed with the next business of the House of Commons. Point of order, I will come to the honourable gentleman. Point of order, Sam Law.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you've used the word perfect copy, evidence, on a number of occasions. Certainly, I think a number of us will have seen on a variety of Twitter feeds clips, which anybody who has a basic lip reading skill will understand what the Labour leader had to say about my friend the Prime Minister. So, will you undertake to take into evidence things which people have tweeted out to show that?
I've got the point. Yeah, come on, quickly.
And indeed to take the footage taken by the officials of this place in terms of television.
I don't honestly think that added much, frankly. I think the commitment was pretty clear. But yes, I'm very happy to provide the honourable gentleman the assurance that he seeks. Point of order, Mr. David Morris.
Mr. Speaker, I've got the utmost respect for your position and the chair. If you look at what's been put forward in evidence and you come back with a judgment, would you please call the honourable gentleman back to the chamber so that we can hear the full evidence of what's been put forward?
I think I rather indicated that I expected that to happen. So if the honourable gentleman seeks the assurance that I would expect the Leader of the Opposition to be here, the answer is yes. And I'm saving the honourable gentleman up if it is wandering. Point of order, Bob Seeley.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. When you have seen the video replay, and thank God for video replays, and you decide to come back to the House, sir, do you have the power to call the Leader of the Opposition back to make sure that he is here to face us?
The short answer to the honourable gentleman is that technically I do not have that power, but I think it reasonable to suppose, in the circumstances, that the Leader of the Opposition would return to the chamber. I think that is an entirely reasonable assumption. It's not for me to get into that until the evidence has been assessed, but it is reasonable to suppose that the right honourable gentleman would return to the chamber. Point of order, Mr. Mark Francois.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the avoidance of doubt, I'm not taking part in an orchestrated riot, but I would like politely to ask a question. I think my right honourable friend was quite right. In these circumstances, you should consult the video referee, and I think you will find that the video evidence is overwhelming. Earlier, the honourable member for Bassett Law made a very powerful point at Prime Minister's questions about anti-Semitism, and there was a great hear around the chamber. And none of us, on any side of this House, would countenance an anti-Semitic statement, particularly made at the dispatch box of the Commons. If we're not going to have anti-Semitic statements, Mr. Speaker, we cannot have misogynistic statements either.
I agree with the right honourable gentleman 100%. I agree with him for the avoidance of doubt and benefiting by repetition 100%. If we have concluded the points of order, of which it's pretty clear I have attempted to treat in detail, we come now to the first of the two ministerial statements. Statement the Secretary of State for the Home Department, Secretary Sajid Javid. With permission, Mr. Speaker. Order. As I promised the House, I have looked at the television footage of the Leader of the Opposition reacting to the Prime Minister, allegedly saying stupid woman to those seated next to him. Having heard the allegation against the Leader of the Opposition, and having watched the footage, it is easy to see why the Leader of the Opposition's words might be construed as stupid woman. That was also the opinion of lip speakers, and I emphasise lip speakers rather than lip readers, whose advice was sought and obtained at short notice. As may be known to members of the House, but it is important in terms of establishing the context, but may not be known to others watching or listening to our proceedings, the right honourable gentleman, the Leader of the Opposition, was seated at the time and not addressing the House. So whatever he said was not and is not audible on the House's audio-visual record. As I have told the House, I neither saw the incident nor heard anything. It was for the same reasons neither heard nor seen by the clerks or by my private secretary. Nor was there any immediate reaction in the House. I believe the allegation made by a number of honourable and right honourable members was based upon the visual evidence from Parliament TV. I also have to rely purely on visual evidence. I am not a lip reader, or indeed a lip speaker. Nobody can be 100% certain. That includes professional lip readers. But I will naturally take, and would be expected to take, the word of any right honourable or honourable member. It is reasonable to expect the House to do the same. I therefore invite the right honourable gentleman, who has at my request returned to the House for this purpose, to make his explanation to the House, which again I expect to be heard without interruption. The Leader of the Opposition, Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for your invitation to come to make a short point to the House, which I'm very happy to do, and come immediately to do that. During Prime Minister's question time today, I referred to those who I believe were seeking to turn a debate about the national crisis facing our country into a pantomime as stupid people. Mr. Speaker, I did not use the words stupid woman about the Prime Minister or anyone else, and am completely opposed to the use of sexist or misogynist language in absolutely any form at all. I'm happy to place that on the record at your request this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. Point of order, the Leader of the House.
Mr. Speaker, I think that the country and this House will have drawn their own conclusions, and I deeply regret that the right honourable gentleman has not seen fit to apologise to my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister.
Thank you. I thank the right honourable lady for what she has said, which requires no comment from the chair. Yes, indeed. Point of order, Rachel McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your guidance, how may I make this orderly? Read my lips. I do not believe him. What can we do to further verify this evidence? What can we do to further ask experts to review this evidence and get the apology from the right honourable gentleman that my honourable friend, the Prime Minister, deserves?
It is not open to a member to impugn the integrity of another member. That is, order, please. That is a violation of the established... If the honourable lady will permit me, she has raised a point of order perfectly reasonably, and I am responding to her. It is not in order to impute dishonour to another member. That is a very long-established convention of this House, so it is not orderly to accuse another member of dishonesty. When the honourable lady inquires what further may be done, and the answer to the honourable lady is that people can seek to solicit opinions on this matter, including of a professional character. I have offered, at short notice, as I thought was my duty, the fruits of the professional advice that I have received. I've shared that very openly with the House. It is not for the chair to pronounce judgment, guilty or innocent, upon a member. It is well established that a member is to be taken at his or her word. If the matter is to be further discussed, debated, commented upon, that is to be expected, but it isn't a matter of order for the chair now. That is as full, and I hope the honourable lady will agree, as courteous a response as I could possibly be expected to provide. Yes, indeed. Point of order, Vicky Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have heard the words stupid woman being used in this chamber about myself, and I'm afraid to say I've heard it from yourself in the Speaker's chair. So, Mr. Speaker, please can we have an apology, draw a line against this and move on?
I'm extremely grateful to the honourable lady for her point of order. I understood that she had made this observation outside the House, and what I want to say to the honourable lady, whom I always treat with great respect in this chamber, is the following. The honourable lady has at no time previously, that is to say prior to today, made that allegation against me. The honourable lady has not come to me and said that, and to my knowledge, I'm in receipt... If the honourable lady will do me the courtesy of allowing me to respond to her point of order, as she has raised it, to my knowledge, I'm not in receipt of a letter alleging that. If there is such an allegation, I refute it 100%. I have received a letter from the honourable lady, as she knows, within, I think, the last 24 hours, on an unrelated matter, specifically to do with proxy voting and baby leave, and I believe I'm right in saying, well, perhaps the honourable lady will do the courtesy of allowing me to respond. I believe I'm right in saying that she wrote to me upon that matter, at least in part, in her capacity as chair of the all-party women group in this House, and to that letter she will, of course, receive a response. That contention has not previously been made, but if it is now made, I say with absolute certainty, it is not correct. I have not said that to or about the honourable lady. That is my response to the honourable lady. Yes, indeed. Yes. Point of order, Laura Pidcock.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to say it's nice to be back. I just wonder what conclusion members of the public will draw from the chamber being used in this way. The right honourable gentleman. I have heard from my constituency office today that members of my constituency and residents have had to have present parcels delivered to them because they cannot afford to buy their children presents. They have not got the money for food, and the chamber being used in this way is absolutely pathetic.
Well, the honourable lady has made her own point in her own way, and it's on the record, and I thank her for taking part in these proceedings. And I will come to other members, preferably people who have not already raised points of order. Point of order, Helen Whately.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think actually it is important what language is used in this chamber. And this centenary year, a large number of us on all sides of the House have made huge efforts to encourage more women to stand for Parliament, many of which have been successful. I believe women are coming forward. It is a great shame that we seem to be nearing the end of the year on such a sour note. Can I urge you, Mr. Speaker, to do more to make sure that the tone of this chamber is better next year? Not just draw a line over this, to make sure next year is better on these points.
Can I say to the honourable lady, I think that's an entirely reasonable point of order. I'm happy to do my bit, and everybody else should do their bit as well. I have the highest regard for the honourable lady, whose commitment on these issues is well known to me. I hope the honourable lady and others will take it in the right spirit if I say that throughout my 9.5 years in the chair to date, I have devoted myself to the cause of trying to open up this place. I have sought to do everything I can to promote a progressive approach in the chamber, in the calling of members, in the functions that I host in Speaker's House, in the approach to facilities on the estate, which didn't previously exist. That's all part of the record. It is manifest, it is observable, and it is incontrovertible. Can we all do better? We can. Should we? We should. Will we? I hope that we will. So I am agreeing with the honourable lady, and I'm sure that that will please her. Point of order, Mr. Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On live television this afternoon, I think everybody in the House would know of well-respected and much admired deaf musician, Dame Evelyn Glennie, world-famous percussionist. She was shown by the presenter of that television programme the clip of the Leader of the Opposition and asked what he had said. And he said, stupid woman. Is there any way I can put on the record that with that tone of apology from the right honourable gentleman, it would have been better if he hadn't bothered?
Well, I don't honestly think, and I say this in all courtesy to the honourable gentleman whom I've known for 3 decades, that he's really very interested in anything I have to say in response to him. What he wanted to do was to say, no, I'm not even complaining. I'm not criticising the honourable gentleman. And I'm grateful for his good humour. The honourable gentleman wanted to make his own point, and he's made it. And I stand by what I previously said. The honourable gentleman's made an important point, but it is not a contradiction of what I've said about the impossibility of certainty, nor is it inconsistent with the spontaneous interpretation which I myself offered. But I repeat, it was my interpretation. I'm not a lip reader, I'm not a lip speaker, and it's not for me to cast judgment in this matter. And fair-minded people who are interested in the merits of the issue, and I'm sure that includes the honourable gentleman, will know that what I say is true. Yes, indeed. I will come to other colleagues. Point of order, Seaman Malhotra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also agree that we have a responsibility as members of this House to be upholding the very highest standards in language about each other, but also about each other's integrity. And I do hope that we'll be able to see a renewed commitment to that next year. Mr. Speaker, I also would like to say that I have been proud to sit on your committee for enhancing equality and diversity in this House, and very soon after I was elected, and to put on record my thanks to you for your commitment to equality and diversity in this House in so many different manners. And my point of order, Mr. Speaker, is on a slightly different topic, however, because according to press reports of a leaked DWP document, EU exit planning, economic downturn, the government, as part of its long-term contingency planning in the event of no deal, suggested it would create a strategy with other departments handling the negative impacts, e.g. homelessness, poverty and suicide. Mr. Speaker, if this is true, these are extremely serious allegations and should be brought explicitly to this House, so that we have access to government analysis as to who they expect to fall into poverty, where homelessness could rise, and who they see at risk of suicide.
For her initial remarks and for her subsequent point of order, to which my response is that there may be an opportunity for those concerns to be aired during the course of the afternoon. Point of order, Sir Desmond Swade.
Mr. Speaker, can I declare an interest as someone who has a bad habit of making utterances under my breath in this chamber? My point of order to you, sir, is had you received different advice from the lip speakers, giving uncontrovertible evidence as to what the Leader of the Opposition have said, what would have been the result? Because I am deeply concerned about the fact that if members are to be upbraided for what they might say under their breath, we are in the realms of thought crime. And this is the madness that is sweeping the universities. What was said was not on the record.
Well, I'm grateful to the Right Honourable Gentleman. I think I've already pointed to the impossibility of certainty in these matters. I repeat, I think most people would accept the reasonableness of my point, and I note with interest and respect the point that the Right Honourable Gentleman, who's an extremely experienced and distinguished parliamentarian, has made. Point of order, Sir Patrick McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I fully accept what you have said in the fact that you were not in the eye line of the Leader of the Opposition. Sitting where I was sitting, I was in the eye line of the Leader of the Opposition. I do have to accept what he has said at the dispatch box, because I don't think he would deliberately lie to a House. But other people will be able to draw their own conclusions from it.
Well, can I, off the top of my head, thank the Right Honourable Gentleman for what he has said, and for the understated terms in which he has said it. People can form their own judgment, but I appreciate the fact that the Right Honourable Gentleman is not seeking to prolong the argument further, at any rate, on the evidence of what he has just said, and that I think is respected. He's a very senior member of this House with long experience. And yes, indeed, of course, I will come to the honourable lady. Point of order, Dr. Matthew Offord.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank you, Mr. Speaker? Because you said you would go away, and you would look at the evidence, you would look at the video, and you would make your mind up, and you did that. I am very grateful. But it is for my constituents to make their own mind up when they actually look at that footage as well. And it's for them to decide if the honourable member or anyone else is indeed a misogynist or anti-Semitic, not for us.
Well, with great respect, and I heard the honourable gentleman out, and it was right to do so. He's made his own point, including a point that was not germane to these exchanges or this controversy, but it stands on the record. I have said I would look into it, I have looked into it, I've come back to the House, and I've said what I've said, and the Leader of the Opposition has said what he said, and I don't honestly think I can be expected to add to that, but I thank the honourable gentleman. Point of order, yes, I will come to the honourable gentleman, of course I will. Point of order, Mr. Nigel Huddleston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Further to the comments made by my honourable friend, the member for Chelmsford, can I say to you with greatest respect, Mr. Speaker, that there are occasions when people do leave this chamber feeling that they have been offended by yourself, and I think the fact that the honourable member felt that way, yet did not feel that there was an appropriate process in place in order to make that complaint or concern felt, probably suggests we've still got work to do in terms of raising issues and concerns in this place.
Always work to do, and progress is not a matter of an isolated act or a single initiative, but rather of a continuous process. I accept the significance of what the honourable gentleman says in that regard, which seems to me to be unexceptionable. Yes, point of order, Laura Smith.
As somebody who's still a relatively new member of this House, I wondered if you could advise me on how I explain to my constituents the level of party politics that is being played out.
Order. That observation at the beginning of that point of order is met with much criticism, but I would very gently say to members can't have it both ways. They can't on the one hand talk about respect, wanting respect for their own right to speak and their own opinion, but not accord a comparable level of respect to someone who happens to express a view that differs from their own. Point of order, Laura Smith.
It's that you hit on the end of my point because the level of hypocrisy in this place is quite astounding. On this side, over here, we have to put up with the most disgraceful insults thrown at us, and nobody more so, Mr. Speaker, than the Leader of the Opposition who has to put up with it day in, day out.
Well, the honourable lady has made her own point with force in her own way, and I thank her for doing so. She's in order to do so, and it's on the record. Yes, a point of order. Forgive me. A point of order, Mr. Mike Wood.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The guidance that you issued to members earlier in the week drew attention both to the need for temperate language, but also to the provisions around misogynistic language as part of the respect policy. If these rules don't apply to the Leader of the Opposition, what protection can members, staff, and staff of the House expect where behaviour isn't broadcast live on international television?
Well, I bring the honourable gentleman's point of order, and the simple answer to the honourable gentleman is that the rules apply to every honourable and right honourable member of this House. That's the factual answer. I can do no other than provide the factual answer, but I thank him for what he said. Yes, I will take remaining points of order. I do ask the House to consider the other business to which we need to proceed. The point of order, Lloyd Russell Moore.
Thank you, Speaker.
On a different note, and I hope on a note that is how point of orders should be used, I would like to seek... I would like to seek your advice.
Well, this is not a moment for levity, but I do want to hear what the honourable gentleman has to say. I do want to hear what the honourable gentleman has to say. Point of order, Mr. Lloyd Russell Moore.
I would like to seek your advice how I could get clarification on the answer that I received from the Foreign Secretary in the Yemen statement. I made a statement. I said that the head of the civil servant in the arms control unit had advised against sales, and the ministers had overturned. He declared that that was not true. The Foreign Secretary and the Trade Secretary both refused to attend the committee hearing on this last year and have said that they will not attend this year. How can we get them to come to the committee to answer these questions, Mr. Speaker?
You can request, I say to the honourable gentleman, he can request attendance, and insofar as he inquires about other recourse open to him, my advice to the honourable gentleman, who is a resourceful individual, is that he should make the short journey from the chamber to the table office to table questions on this matter. Now, it may be that the honourable gentleman will feel inclined to table more than one question. He may table several. He may do so on a repeated basis. There is no prohibition on repetition in the House of Commons. And yes, point of order, Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Further to your remarks earlier about impugning another member's honour and integrity, I distinctly heard during Prime Minister's questions the leader of the opposition refer to her actions as criminal. I've also checked on Hansard, and that is on the record. Is that in order?
It is perfectly in order to offer that expression of opinion, and I say that, yes, I say that on advice from the clerk. I didn't witness that exchange. I'm not asking the Minister of State. I'm not asking the Minister of State what she thinks he did say. I am responding to the honourable lady's point of order. People are entitled to offer their own views within the rules of order, and to the best of my knowledge, nothing disorderly was said. I'm happy to look at the record and consult further, but the advice that I've received is that nothing disorderly was said. And point of order, Mr. Ben Bradshaw.
Mr. Speaker, I suspect most of us are in the chamber to hear a very important application for an emergency on the single most important issue that's faced our country in peacetime. And the public looking in will find the spectacle completely ludicrous. So can we please move on to the important business of the House?
If I know the right honourable gentleman what he said, I hope you'll understand me if I say that it is not possible in these matters to please everyone. I'm trying to do the right thing by listening to, taking account of, and offering a response to points of order. But I am conscious, and the House will be conscious, that we have important business to which to proceed, and I do intend that we shall do so. And I would very politely suggest that if people have already raised points of order, they should not treat points of order as an ongoing debate. If somebody raises a point of order and I respond to it, I think it is reasonable to proceed to the next person and then to a conclusion of those points of order. Point of order, Dr. Caroline Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Trust in politics is very important. We have all seen, or the vast majority of us have now seen this video. Members of this House, on both sides, have commented that they thought the words used were stupid woman. Members of the public have commented on Twitter and other places that they thought the words were stupid woman. Mr. Speaker, if I understand you correctly, your own interpretation of that video was that the words used were stupid woman, and that those of your lip speaker and the member for North Dorset's lip reader have all said the same. I take the right honourable gentleman at his word, as I will do so. I'm sure that, like the member for Derbyshire Dale said, that he would not lie in this chamber. However, I am very concerned that incongruity between the different statements will affect trust in politics, and I want to know how he could use his good office to ensure that trust in politics is not affected adversely by the incongruity between what has been said by the right honourable gentleman and the overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
And the answer is by behaving well on a regular basis and by attending to our responsibilities in this House. That, encapsulated in a sentence, is my response to the honourable lady's point of order. I think it's fair and reasonable. Point of order, Mr. Russell-Carmack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The right honourable member for New Forest West is right in saying that whatever the leader of the opposition said was not said on the record. The leader of the opposition, however, has now put it on the record by coming to the dispatch box and making his statement. Anyone, and I mean anyone not just in this chamber, who has complaints to make about that, has recourse to the proper procedures involving the Sanders Commissioner. Surely at this time of all, Mr. Speaker, it is important that we use the proper procedures rather than proceeding to trial by points of order in the chamber.
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman that I agree that we do not have, or we should not have, trial by points of order. That is not consistent with any due process. I hope the right honourable gentleman will forgive me if I say to him that, as far as I understand it, conduct in the chamber does not fall within the purview of the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner. So I don't think that an allegation of misconduct on that front in this situation could be adjudicated by the Parliamentary Standards Commission. I don't think that that is correct. But what I would say is that there are opportunities for members to continue this argument and debate if they so wish. But I genuinely ask the House, how does it avail our deliberations on public policy to proceed indefinitely with points of order on the same subject? Manifestly, it does not. I will take two more, and then the members, and then I really do think we should draw the matter to a close. Point of order, Paul Scully.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to bring this to a close, and asking you, in order to give people in this place and members of the public the ability to make their own mind up, I wonder, Mr. Speaker, you might publish the advice that you received.
And I'm advised no, and I stick to the advice no. I have to say to the honourable gentleman that I consulted. There was no written advice from the lip speakers. This was done at very short notice, and I was given a view by them. And it was not without qualification. I won't go into the detail of it. I gave the essence of it, but it was not without qualification or caveat. But there is no written advice from the lip speakers. So I hope I've misunderstood the honourable gentleman. I don't think there's merit in persisting with this exchange, but that's my response to the honourable gentleman. Of course, point of order, JTP.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Just to change the subject, to return to the issue raised by the right honourable gentleman for Exeter. Mr. Speaker, there's been a series of SO24 debates recently. On Monday, over 50 members rose on the benches opposite, and barely a dozen or so spoke. The previous week, the benches opposite were absolutely full at the point of application, and barely 20 members opposite thereafter spoke. In your reviewing of Hansard, Mr. Speaker, have you noticed any inconsistency between the urgency shown in applying for SO24 debates and participation thereafter? And in your review view of the content of the speeches within those debates, have you noticed any difference between those, the content of those speeches, and those in our more routine discourse on Brexit? Finally, Mr. Speaker, as members opposite may shortly rise to support such a debate tomorrow, do you have any expectation on how many of them will then attend to speak in it?
So the last point is no, and my response to the honourable gentleman, and I thank him for his multifaceted point of order, is as follows. There is absolutely no inconsistency within the procedures of this House whatsoever between members rising to support the granting of a debate on the one hand and not choosing to participate in it on the other. There is no incongruity, there is no incompatibility, there is no inconsistency, there is no contradiction. I hope the honourable gentleman, who is a most courteous and assiduous member of this House, would accept that I am well familiar with the procedures of this House, and I know of what I speak. The honourable gentleman may think that's odd or peculiar, or that it offends his sensibilities in some way, and I'm sorry if that is the case, but there's nothing wrong or procedurally improper about that at all. And do I have an estimate of the number of members? No, I'm extraordinarily grateful to the honourable gentleman for attributing to me powers that I don't possess, but I'm not psychic. I'm not psychic. Point of order, Rashnar Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning there was a knife attack in a constituency surgery in my constituency where 3 people were attacked. Does he agree with me that instead of debating points of order about what was said earlier, we should draw a line under it and move on to the substantive issues that affect our constituencies? Because otherwise they will quite rightly think that collective stupidity has taken hold of this House.
Well, I hope we will be able, and I thank the honourable lady for what she said and the sincerity with which I know, like all members speak, the sincerity she has said it. I hope we can shortly move on. But not, I think, before we've heard from, I think, 2 other members. I want to save the national institution. I want to save the honourable gentleman to the end. Point of order, Catherine West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had wanted to raise it earlier, but after the points of order, I saved it till now. This is not to do with our earlier debate. But on the 28th of November, I tabled a name-day question to the Home Secretary regarding LGBT asylum cases. And 3 weeks have now passed, but sadly no answer to the question has materialised. I understand that the government is in complete meltdown over Brexit. But, Mr. Speaker, can you offer any guidance as to what parliamentary mechanisms are available to compel the Home Secretary to answer these important inquiries?
I thank the honourable member for giving me notice of this matter. Responsibility for answering parliamentary questions lies with the departmental ministers concerned. I certainly agree that it is unsatisfactory if ministers do not respond to questions in the expected timescale. And to be so late in responding to a named-day question would appear to be particularly unacceptable. Successive leaders of this House have also accepted a responsibility to take up such tardiness of reply, or indeed non-reply, with departmental ministers, and I thank the Leader of the House for signalling from a secretary position that she too does so and takes such matters seriously. I would further suggest to the honourable lady that she write to the chair of the Procedure Committee, whose chair is in our midst, the honourable gentleman, the member for Broxbourne, as his committee takes an active part in monitoring the timeliness of government answers to parliamentary questions. And meanwhile, no doubt her concern has been noted on the Treasury bench. And lastly, I think on the opposition benches, I want to hear the point of order from the honourable gentleman, the member for Huddersfield, who was first elected to the House 39 years, 7 months and 16 days ago.
Mr. Speaker, I was going to start my remark by saying I've been in the House longer than you, and that is true. And I'm also well known to be a bit of a tundra. I often turn to the person next door to me and say quite rude things, not dreadful, rude things about something I disagree with. But this is a serious point of order. I can't believe that this House is going to get to the state where something mentioned under the breath or slightly, what a silly sod, or something like that. I say that very often quite loudly. Mr. Speaker, we cannot have a system here where we start lip-reading something that someone said to the next door neighbour when passions are high in this House. It's supposed to be a place where we have high passions, but it's also a place where we treat people like adults. And today, we've been rather like badly behaved children. We're in a crucial time in the history of our country, the most delicate and worrying time in my time in the House, and we've spent all these hours on this mention. I believe the Leader of the Opposition said what he said. Let's draw a line under it and get on and act like grown-ups.
Well, can I just say, I thank the honourable gentleman for what he said, and all I would like to do is to plant in the minds of honourable and right honourable members before we proceed one simple fact, and that is that a number of very, very senior members with long experience of this House and coming from both sides of it have in recent months made a very similar point. Today the honourable gentleman has made that point, and I think she won't take exception or cavil if I say that the right honourable lady, the member for Derby South, made a similar point at an earlier stage in our proceedings. It is a point that has previously been made by the father of the House. They do have long experience. They do know what they're talking about. And it might be a good idea to have a degree of calm and a readiness to heed their wise advice.